So today we're going to talk about multilingual sourcing, and those of you who are attending here are most obviously interested in hiring individuals, professionals with language skills. And we do a lot of webinars about sourcing, and we've done many in the past about LinkedIn, Google, Boolean, everything else. And we focus predominantly on finding candidates in English speaking as well. There are some nuances with regard to multilingual sourcing that are fairly important, and we're going to cover those today for those of you trying to find international candidates with language skills. First area we're going to cover is our synonyms, which are the most important thing that any sourcer or recruiter needs to know about, especially if you do multilingual. It's slightly different from a synonym context from multilingual. If you don't know what synonym is or unsure of the word, it means the same, only different, and that's quite literally what we're talking about. We're going to talk about two tools that are vital when you do multilingual recruitment, Frangly and Wikipedia. We're going to go into LinkedIn because LinkedIn for most of you is still probably the primary source of candidates. And we're going to discuss how LinkedIn isn't terribly friendly for finding non-English speakers. And then we're going to talk about some other global social networks that, depending on the language you're looking to recruit for, are going to be a lot more important than LinkedIn to you. And we're going to briefly cover those at the end. For those of you who have one or two languages, you'll recognize perhaps my attempt at translating LinkedIn into different languages in the bottom right hand corner here. If I've got them wrong, please let me know. I've used one of the tools that we'll be showing you in this webinar to try and translate them. So first off, synonyms, the same, only different. When you look for somebody with a foreign language, and I'm going to use the language Spanish quite a bit and occasionally German as well as two examples, but it applies to any language. You need to think about the individual who's created the content. When you search your own database of CVs, when you search the internet for CVs or profiles, when you search LinkedIn or Zing or Viadeo for information, you have to respect the language that an individual has written their profile in or potentially described themselves in, and think of the synonyms for that. And first off, the most basic is if you're on the web and you're looking for a CV isn't necessarily called a CV in every language. Yes, internationally, the two letters C and V are the most popular in nearly every market for referring to the document that describes your work experience and education. But in other markets, Germany for example, it may be Lebenslauf. Even in the English-speaking market, you have to try and cover other synonyms of CV, such as resume and curriculum vitae, and all the different spellings that go with that. So for starters, if you're looking for CVs, you need to think about different languages. For most of you, that's going to be fairly obvious. What may not be is that if you're looking for someone who's Spanish speaking, they may have Spanish speaking or Spanish as a language on their profile, they may have it on their resume, but they may not. If you're an English speaking person and you were applying for a job in your local country, you generally don't put down language as English because it's just assumed. Likewise, if someone has joined LinkedIn and they're in Spain, they might not actually put down Spanish as a language, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. They may just have the fact that they attended university. I spelled university incorrectly here, by the way. That wasn't a trick. Someone who's attended University of Madrid, I think it's a fairly easy guess that they're going to be Spanish speaking. So when you're looking for keywords on a CV or a profile or on LinkedIn or any network, you need to think of other ways people might have written their language, or phrases or terms that would suggest that they have a language skill. Similarly, if somebody is German speaking, they may not have that in their resume. They might have that they have worked in Berlin or Dusseldorf. So cities and countries are alternative synonyms for a language as well. The most basic way if you do multilingual searching is the fact that a marketing manager, if you look for a Spanish-speaking marketing manager, might not have written their resume or CV in English and might have Gérant de Marketing as their current title, whether that be LinkedIn or whether that be their CV or online or on a website, a company website. So you need to think of the alternatives, which include the different languages somebody may have written a phrase in. If you look for a marketing manager and you want Spanish, you need to look for two things: the language and the title. If you look for Gérant de Marketing, you're finding someone who's a marketing manager and speaks Spanish by default. So sometimes you can combine two different items you're searching for by just putting it in a language, a native language of the person you're looking for. Similarly, country can be sometimes isn't spelled out on CVs. CVs, bios, profiles these days generally don't have personal addresses listed anymore, and this is probably due to individuals being concerned about the fact that for data protection people might get their home address and use that against them. So people generally would have an email address and they might have a phone number. So you need to basically try and track them down, not looking for the word Spain anymore, but looking for +34, which would be the country code for Spain. But also remember that it could have been written as 0034, or 00 space 34, which depending on your search engine or database, it will be seen in different ways, and you have to try and cover all the different angles. So the university or education can suggest someone's language. The countries or cities they've worked in can suggest their language. The language they use to obviously write their job titles is very much going to suggest what language they speak. And country codes and phone codes very much dictate where somebody is as well, and can be really important things to search for. If you're using some Boolean, and those of you who are familiar, at least basically, with Boolean, you'll be comfortable running some Boolean searches. You'll know that if you type in CV and you type in Spanish on Google, you're going to find crazy results. But you can run a search for CV Universidad something Madrid or University something Madrid to try and cover both the English and the Spanish spelling of university, and you'll see some surprising results. I'm going to jump into Google and show you that example for starters here. So first off, we go to our Google page. I'm going to type in CV Spanish, for example, here, and show you that you get sample CVs, you get junk, how to write a CV, etc., etc. You don't see very many people. But if I say, well, I'm going to look for somebody who's attended the University of Madrid, and first of all, I'm going to go look for somebody who's written that in Spanish. So Universidad space something Madrid, the wildcard, I won't explain for the moment in too much detail, but it stands in Google for 1 to 5 words, whole words. That covers of and any other variation between Universidad and Madrid. Wait 1 second, I'm just going to change this to, should be in inverted commas, the bracket starts there, and then we use the R operator and we say University something Madrid, and we close that off and we close our brackets. Okay, so running a search for just that basic term pretty much brings up CVs straight away. You don't actually get the junk of job specs, which is pretty amazing. You don't need to know a whole lot about Boolean to find something like that, because the combination of CV with the university typically only brings up CV documents. It doesn't bring up all the job specs that say please submit your CV, etc., etc. And there's a nice mix there. You find that here's somebody who has called it curriculum vitae, but has, obviously they're in New York, and then university in Madrid. Here's somebody else, University of Madrid, Universidad de Complutense Madrid. You get varying different Universidad Politécnica de Madrid. So we're covering lots of different options that we wouldn't have got if we just looked for University Madrid or University of Madrid. And that's why the star here, the wildcard operator, is so important. So a very simple search like this, replacing this with any university or any educational establishment, and then adding some keywords that you might want to put onto that. So it might be, I don't know, developer, for example, and it narrows down to CVs of developers who have attended University in Madrid. Straight away, not a whole lot of filtering, great CV search results. So being intelligent about the Boolean and the language with something like a university can be really powerful when you run it on Google. So that comes back to our research. So how do we find out what are the other universities in Spain we need to be searching for, and how do we understand what is university written in Spanish if we're not a native Spanish speaker, yet we have to recruit such candidates? Well, first off, for translation tools, I'm going to send you to a site called Frangly.com. Frangly is a fantastic free translation site that I use over and over again, and we recommend it in our training courses. I used to use Google Translate. Many of you would have done the same, or other translation tools. Frangly is nice and simple. It's easy. When you type in university, it detects your native language, and then you can click in, I want to know what that is in Russian, Spanish, Croatian, Danish, etc., etc., Filipino. You keep changing the language down the bottom. You can put a whole text there, so you can put in software developer, and you can find out what that is in Spanish. In Swedish, tell me if you're Spanish speaking, is that pretty much accurate? Is that Rolador, the software? I'm sure my accent's very poor. Italian, Czech, try what it is and see what it is in German, software in Twitter, etc., etc. So really good way, and you just literally copy and paste that and run that in your search to try and find somebody better. So Frangly, fantastic tool for words or whole phrases to try and translate and then build better searches.